Oh no, Richie, you might have to jump in. Brad's frozen. Or is it just me?
Did we lose Brad?
I think we lost Brad. Here we go. We just go live and he drops off. He just freezes. Deary me. Oh, what's going on? Amateur. Bloody amateur. Need some new tech.
Are we back?
So, okay, cracking game.
Honestly, I've been talking myself.
Richie, how did you enjoy the weekend?
Oh, we're out of blocks tonight.
Did you get any of that? Did we get any of what I said?
No.
No, great start. Okay, awesome. Welcome to episode 38. As I was saying to myself, obviously, we're here live on Wednesdays. Evening, Richie. We're down to the final week. What did you think of the week, and how are you looking forward to the finals?
Yeah, week was good, mate. Both semi-finals were cracking games. Unfortunately, the Kiwis came out on the wrong side of the ledger, which was a little bit heartbreaking, but at the same time, very, very happy for Samoa. Unfortunate for England, but on their home turf, but great for Samoa. And I'm sure Auckland is full of parades like it was here in Wellington as well. It's been full of celebration.
Yeah, definitely. First Tier 2 nation to make a World Cup final as well. So massive congratulations to them. Obviously, we're going to talk about that a bit later. But while we're here live on Wednesdays at 8 p.m, you can catch our show at your convenience on iHeartRadio. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. As always, we're going to cover everything that you need to know in the week that was Rugby League, including our top stories of the week, a review of the fifth week of the World Cup, including all the semi-finals. We'll then stop and answer some questions from you guys, as well as some questions we've got for each other, before ending the night with a preview of the three finals. So remember to send us comments and questions throughout the show, and we may as well just jump straight into the top stories, Richie.
Yep.
First one, I don't really have too much on it, but we obviously were talking about the NRL not really giving out the draw last Wednesday, and then Thursday they must have listened to our complaints, and they quickly pushed it out. So yeah, Thursday they announced the draw. We can now confirm the Knights are going to miss Magic Round. I was going through the draw to look at anything I wanted to pull out, but there wasn't really anything that interesting to talk about now. We'll obviously do it at a later date when we're looking into next season. But there's 3 buys for each team now due to the fact that there's an extra team in there. And I haven't really looked at the other clubs' draws that closely, but the Warriors have a tough campaign. I know I was talking to you and also Ruin Hammer after it was announced, and I still have that negative feeling about the Warriors right now, as this is the case at the end of each season. And I looked at the first 10 rounds and said we might be lucky to see 2 wins, hoping that's not the case, but very tough start. But what was your take quickly on the draw that you had a look at?
It's a very glass half empty view, Brad.
It's my life.
It's tough, but I guess for me, most games in the NRL are tough nowadays, unless you're lining up against the Tigers. No, there's no guaranteed wins. And even next year, the Tigers, with a couple of good signings, might be a bit stiffer competition. So, hey, you want to be in the top 8, you got to beat good teams, mate. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, we'll talk about that. And we may as well keep going on the news. We'll talk about the draw a bit more in depth once the World Cup's over. But the Golden Boots were awarded. The Golden Boot is the award for Best International Player. New Zealand kind of dominated the field. Joey Manu won the Golden Boot for the men. Racine McGregor won it for the women. And then Englishman Sebastian Bachara also won the Golden Boot for the wheelchair rugby league. So what's your take on that? Any surprises there?
Not really. Before the World Cup, it was only really the one sort of round of internationals. So it's not like they've got a huge lot of games to make that selection from. But I guess Joey Manu, like he normally does, has been very good. He's consistently good week in, week out in the NRL, and he's taken that to internationals as well. So a couple of other candidates were very good. I think Josh Addo-Carr's had a really good World Cup as well, but I can't argue too hard with Joey.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with the selections. Addo-Carr, I think, definitely had to be in conversation just due to the amazing displays he's put on this year. I would say he we'll talk about it in the semi-final wrap-up, but I think he had a reasonably quiet game against the Kiwis, but he scored a hell of a try. So even though they kept him quiet for the most part, when you give him an inch, he's going to take a mile. But yeah, well done to all Am I back? Oh my god, what's going on? I'm gonna have to talk to the flatmates to stop downloading something or something like that.
I thought it was me.
No, it was me. So next bit of news, Jazz Tavanga has re-signed with the Warriors until the end of 2024. Just a 1-year extension. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm happy with that. He can be a bit polarizing amongst our fan base. Seems like one of those players you either love him or you hate him. But Jazz brings a lot. I think he brings a lot of energy, and I think the season just gone, he cleaned up a lot of penalties and errors that people, that would be one gripe that people had with Jazz. But I think he cleaned his game up a lot. Season just gone, and I think it's a positive thing. He covers a lot of bases in our pack, or he's also an ideal bench man. So, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, I'm happy too. My biggest concern with him was always his discipline, and he definitely worked on that. So, very happy to see him stick around. And his flexibility to be able to play anywhere. I know he doesn't want to be in the front row again, and I'm got all my fingers and toes crossed that doesn't happen to him again. But just the ability for him to fill in any space really in the team in that pack is very valuable, especially with how long the seasons are and the injuries that can happen. So very happy to see that. Continuing with the Warriors signing news, they've also signed former Dragon Braden Willamy on a 2-year deal. He's was currently playing rugby union in France prior to the signing. What's your take on it? He's traditionally a second rower / centre, so it's yet another second rower the Warriors have picked up. We're going to have a whole team of them by the looks of things.
I came a bit out of the blue. It wasn't what I was expecting, but I don't know that I see him cracking a starting lineup, but I don't know. Maybe you do, Brad. I'm not sure, but I think probably a depth signing. I mean, we've seen over the past couple of seasons, we've been hit pretty hard with injuries and other things, suspensions. So you got to have those handy backups. You going again, mate? Paul, I might have to run solo.
Yeah, you've got my notes here, mate. You might have to take over. Depth signing for sure. So we'll move on to the next bit. Knights and Tigers have conducted a player trade, which has seen Jackson Hastings and David Clemmer switch places. It was kind of a rumor until today when it was officially confirmed. But both have signed their new deals. I think it's till the end of 2025. Clemmer's got an option for an additional year in 2026. What's your take on that, and who do you think, is it a win-win, or has one team got the better deal?
Well, I think Clemmer's a a very solid front rower. Even nowadays, I think last year he was playing good footy for the Knights, even though they weren't travelling. I think he was probably one of their better performers when he was there. But I think the Knights have definitely pulled a bit of a win there. I don't know why the Tigers would look at letting Jackson Hastings go. Whenever they were pulling off wins last year, he seemed to be at the forefront. But if there's one thing that the Knights are really crying out for, it's a good half, and I think that's a bit of a win for the Knights.
Yeah, I think Hastings is going to be a massive improvement for Newcastle. They definitely missed that leading half when they let Mitchell Pearce go. And I think the Tigers are crazy to let Hastings go. I think the Tigers never looked better than when he was out there, but they've obviously decided that Luke Brooks is the way forward, even though there's still rumours that Luke Brooks might be on the way out. I know they are talking about potentially trying to bring in Mitchell Moses as well. So there's still a lot of chess pieces that can move. But yeah, I think they've lost Tamo in their pack and they've replaced him with Klima, which I think is an upgrade.
Yep.
And it's a win-win. I think Mikey said it. It's a win-win for both clubs. I think Klima will really solidify that pack, which should hopefully unlock a little bit more for the backs for the Tigers. And Hastings can really lead the show at Newcastle because they don't have a natural leader in that back line. I know they've got Ponga, who's the X factor, but he's not really that guy you can lean on to direct play. So I think that's very good signing for both. Would have loved Hastings to have come to New Zealand maybe, but it is what it is. Next bit of news coming on the World Cup. Victor Radley's currently under investigation for an alleged brawl with Ireland forward James Bentley at the team hotel. Rumours, as they are, got to take with a grain of salt, but apparently Bentley started a fight with disparaging remarks to the English coach Sean Wayne on the belief that Sean Wayne should have picked him for England. And go. Radley may find himself fanning NRL sanctions.
We missed a lot of that, Matt. But I was just going to say, I was going to fill in for you and say,
I'll let you take over, mate.
Yeah, all right. Take over the hot seat. No, I don't. Who knows, mate? It's a lot of hearsay. I don't know exactly what went on and whether what was reported is accurate, but Victor Radley's probably, if what's reported is accurate, just sticking up for his coach. And I don't condone violence, but I don't know. Like Brad would say, there was probably not a lot in it.
Yeah, I read a release from the International Rugby League saying they're not going to do any investigation, and it's going to be completely up to the NRL and the English Rugby League to do the news later on.
I think, there's a good comment there. Media overreacts. I think sometimes they do. So this is probably one of those cases where they're looking for a bit of drama that's there, but it's nothing crazy. I think blown out of proportion a wee bit.
Yep.
You back with us?
For now. You got the next bit of news, or do you want me to attempt to?
The next bit of news was New South Wales coach Brad Fittler believes all Tier 1 international players should also be available for Origin selection if they have played Origin at age grade or have lived in Australia since before the age of 13. So what do you think, Brad? Is that Brad Fittler looking to keep his New South Wales cattle safe because he's got a lot of Polynesians in his team?
Well, there's a lot of his team playing in the final against Australia this week.
Yeah.
I think he's just trying to stem the flow in case something happens. If they decide that no, Samoa's too good and you can't play Origin, they're not going to become a tier 1 nation even if they win the World Cup. It's not just based on how you perform. It's about all the ins and outs of your club or of your nation in terms of the youth grades and all that. So Samoa is not going to be a category 1 even if they win the World Cup. So I don't think he needs to overreact there. But I don't remember if I said it on the show last week or if I said it off air, but I said it's kind of a lose-lose if Australia win or lose the World Cup. If they win the World Cup, they will continue that internationals don't matter because they can just play 3 Origins a year and beat everybody. But if Samoa, Tonga, New Zealand, England win the World Cup, Australia might react by saying anyone that wants to play Origin must play for Australia. And then you'll see if these Samoans and Tongans decide, no, I would rather play Origin, which I don't disagree with. I know a lot of people say it shouldn't be about the money, but you get paid for 3 Origin games a year, or you get 1 international maybe a year. So if you want a little bit of extra money, you're going to go with the one that's consistently happening. But yeah, it's only time will tell. I don't think anything will change dramatically.
It's not just the match payments with Origin too. It's putting yourself in the shop window of the most televised and hyped series there is in rugby league. So when it comes to contract talks for NRL contracts, Origin players definitely get that little extra slice of the pie as well. So there's a lot of incentives to play Origin, isn't there?
There is, yeah. So yeah, as I said, time will tell. But yeah, next bit of news. Mr. Leader, you.
I'm the news reporter now. So George Williams is open to the idea of returning to the NRL one day. So he's been going pretty well, I think, for England in the World Cup. They had a difficult outing on the weekend, but he's shown he's up to that level. Brad, would you see him fitting in at a club anywhere in the NRL?
Yeah, he should still be in there now. I know there's still a lot of people filthy about him leaving the Raiders like he did. And I don't blame them if it had happened if he was a Warriors player. I'd feel the same. He's come out a bit more now and said it was more around the COVID thing. That was a bit harder, and that's why he left when he did. I think he'd fit him fine. It's just, would he go? Where would he go? Would he end up going back to the Raiders, or would he just go wherever he wanted? And yeah, Simon said George will get another case of homesickness. Yeah, he may do. But yeah, I'd be happy to see him back.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure there'll be a club somewhere that would that could use a half like that. We'll just have to see if it happens. Next bit of news was Andrew McCulloch has announced his retirement from first grade. Former Bronco and Dragon. What do you make of that news, Brad? Yeah,
I'm not too surprised.
Sad to see him go. Being a big fan of the clubs he's played at.
Not really. No, he's been a tremendous player for the length of career he's had. It's interesting. I did read that he has got a job with both the Broncos and the Dragons at the moment. So he's in he's like a development role for, I believe, the Broncos, and an office role for the Dragons. So I don't know how that works.
It's pulling a Cooper Cronk.
Yeah. So well done. I know the Dragons were trying to get a bit of cap room by letting some of these guys retire. So it's good to see one of them decided to do that for them. But congrats on a decent career.
Yep, we wish you well, Andrew, in your retirement in the next stage. The next bit of news was the ARL have tabled a new CBA offer, which would see the NRL players' average wage to sit at $400K, which is an increase of 23% It will also see the NRLW players get 146% pay rise. That's nice. The offer is still pending with the RLPA label. The RLPA labeled the offer as not not as good as it sounds.
Yeah. So there's nothing officially signed. The RLPA, the Rugby League Players Association, basically said the figures sound good, but it's not as nice as they would like it to be. So they want to kind of push back for another offer. I'm not sure. It's very dicey, people's opinions on it. Some people say the ARL is, not recognizing the players for what they put out on the field, and some people are saying the players are too greedy. A 23% pay rise is pretty good, especially in this time and place with
I'd take that.
How prices are. But I'm more excited. I'm hoping that they do. If they get a better offer, that's great. But if they stick with this offer, I think it's more for the NRLW players, which I think is where the money really needs to be looking into. But yeah, it's interesting times. The NRL does, or the ARL does, make a bit of coin off the backs of the players. So seeing the players get a bit more money, and it's a lot of money. Like, I think the minimum wage before this was like 100 and something grand, which in my current mindset, I would take that to play for the Warriors, if you ask me. But I'm not in that environment, and we've seen with guys like Ben Henry going back to Warriors, Nathaniel Roach, who we talked about last week, who's making another attempt at getting back online. Some of these guys, they could be set up for life if they can get through, and some of them, they're lucky if they make it one season, and then after that, their career's gone. And most of them, they are getting better with the off-field stuff and getting these players into positions where they can grow after footy, getting them into like courses and stuff when they're younger, so they can leave, they can retire from footy and have a degree in something and actually continue. Because there's so many players, you're not going to have every single player become a coach or get involved in the media. So, those jobs are limited, and you're generally going to see either the big personalities in media or those knowledgeable players like your Cooper Cronks and the halves and things like that know the ins and outs of footy. You're not going to see your Joe Blow prop sitting there unless they're a big personality. It's as Paul put in there, it's a very short career for most players. And not every player is getting the big bucks. So, it's interesting. I don't know where to stand on it. I would take anything to play. Cameron George, I know you're watching. You're a bit short on props. Get me into a training program, and I'll do it for like 40, 50K. I'll be fine.
Give me fun for the first 2 minutes, then you'll take a hit.
That's right. That's right. As long as I get my payment in full before the first game.
Yeah, I can see a Brad retirement after a few games or a few training sessions.
A few trainings. I think one preseason. Do it.
I think that's all we had for the news, Brad. Unless you added anything on, did you?
No, that was it.
So we'll move on to injuries. Only one this week, with Fa'amanu Brown suffering a head knock, and due to the 11-day stand-down period, he will miss the final this week, which is unfortunate for him and Samoa, as they were already down a hooker with Danny Levi ruling himself out as well. So a little bit of a blow for Samoa. Hopefully they can cover that.
Well, it sounds like Chanel Harris-Tavita might become their incumbent hooker.
Yes, which is a good move. I think he can cover that. He can cover that position pretty well. I think I've always thought he would make a half decent hooker. You like that move?
Yeah, I'm happy with it. Anytime I think Samoa plays better with Chanel out there. I think I was calling it earlier in the round saying that I thought Chanel and Luai in the halves would probably make them more successful. Milford obviously listened and has played a lot better, and they've got to the final. So what do I know?
Yeah.
But
well, I think you're right. Just having Chanel, I think Chanel has to be in the game day team, but having him in the spine there, we know he's defensively very sound and can cover a hooker's defense. So I'd be pretty happy with that. That was all the injuries because we're down to the last game of the season.
Yeah.
So other than that, Naughty Boys Corner, Samoan captain Junior Bolo he's evaded another suspension. He's doing the matrix and swerving out of the way of them. For the second week in a row, he's escaped suspension after being cautioned for his lifting tackle on Tom Burgess. Good for Samoa, though, to have the skipper there.
And Tom Burgess and Sean Wayne, the English player and the English coach, actually came out after the match and said that it wasn't as bad as it may have looked, and that he shouldn't miss the final because of it. So I think that probably helped him, the fact that the player that he tackled was coming out in his defense. Like, no one, it's going to have to be a pretty bad incident to have them ban a player from the final. So yeah, I'm happy to see that Paul Bolo is playing, because I think he's really integral to that team, and you just don't want to. It's bad enough that Paul Brown's going to miss it out because of the head knock. You don't want to lose your captain as well. So cooler heads prevailed.
Absolutely. So that was all for Naughty Boys Corner as well. We can move on to World Cup Week 5 if you like, Brad. Yep.
So
we had the woman.
Yeah, you go.
All right.
So before you go, the games we're going to talk in depth about, in case you can't see it properly, Richie, is the two girls semi-finals and the two boys semi-finals. So
easy.
You can run off the other ones.
I'll run through the other ones. So we had in the women's tournament, Canada beating Brazil 22-16. We had England getting up over Papua New Guinea 42-4. On Friday, we had France beating the Cook Islands 26-18. Also on Friday, Australia edged out New Zealand 10-8 in a very close game. Very disappointing there. The semi-finals on Tuesday. These are the ones we're going to cover off a bit more. So Tuesday, we had Australia romping home over Papua New Guinea 82-0. Not a very semi-final-like scoreline yet. That's a very appropriate picture, Paul. 82-0, Brad. Don't know what you're going to ramble off about that. It's pretty dominant, obviously, but what do you think?
It was a close game. Close game. We kind of talked about it. We kind of talked about it before we went live, saying, like, unfortunately in the women's game, they're not at the level that the men's are now, where other nations are kind of catching up. It's three teams in the women's competition that are competitive enough. Like Papua New Guinea were in this World Cup the fourth best side. And that is the difference level between them and that. When you look at, they played England this week, as you already mentioned, and they lost 42-4.
Yeah.
So it's not like this, if they had ended up playing England in the semi-final or New Zealand in the semi-final, that scoreline, it probably wouldn't have been as bad as it was. But as I said before we went live, hopefully more of the Papua New Guinean women players get into the NRLW and get that experience, and then you'll see them start to develop as well. But overall, I thought it was a fantastic performance from Australia. It's hard to fault. Had we not seen them just win by 2 against New Zealand a few days before, I would be super worried about the final coming up. I'm still concerned. I still think it's going to be very tough for the Kiwi Ferns, but to know that they've already played them and they just lost, you're not going to expect a big blowout, hopefully. But congrats to Australia. They've been near on the most impressive team in the women's comp so far. So hopefully it doesn't continue for another week.
Hopefully. And speaking of the Kiwi Ferns, they got up over England 20 points to 6 in the other semi-final. So a lot more competitive there, which we were also talking a bit before coming on here. That could be a positive for New Zealand, having a tougher hit out, and Australia having a bit of a cakewalk. So I thought the New Zealand team was pretty good value. They look good. I'm like you. Look, it is concerning coming up against Aussie in the final, but we saw last week that we can foot it with them, and I'm hoping the tougher semi-final we had will hold us in good stead there, and maybe our preparation might be a little bit better.
Yeah, and it was 20-6, but England scored in the first 4 minutes, so they basically New Zealand kept them scoreless for 75 minutes. And just, some strong outings from some talented players. And, really good. Nice to see New Zealand beat England in the women's game in 2 codes over the weekend, Paul. But, I thought it was great performance from them, especially after the boys let us down, which we'll talk about later. Just great to see New Zealand involved in the finals in some capacity.
Yeah, and it makes for a good, very good final too. So we'll talk about that a little later on, but that's a good one to look forward to. We also had the wheelchair tournament. So on Thursday we had Australia beating Spain 52-32, and also on Thursday England getting up over Ireland 121-0. It's a bit of a hiding there. Did you catch either of those, Brad?
I saw a little bit of Australia-Spain. Looked quite interesting.
Yeah. I caught highlights. I didn't see the full game of either game, but feels a bit sorry for Ireland there. It's quite a scoreline to have racked up against you. The men's semi-finals. So let's talk about the one we probably don't want to talk about, Brad. On Saturday, Australia edging out the Kiwis 16-14. Cracking game, very closely contested game. I thought for large periods of the game, I thought we were probably the better team. Maybe I've got rose-tinted glasses on there, but I thought for big periods of that we were the better team. I thought even our halves looked probably like they were outplaying Australia's much vaunted halves. It's just Australia's got that know how to win about them, I guess. All it took was for us to clock off for a short period, a little clock off from Brandon Smith. I'm not sure what was going on there, whether he's a bit buzzed from the tackle, but then Cam Murray goes over for a pretty soft try from a quick tap, and that was all she wrote. Yeah,
soft try. It's heartbreaking. Not that was the end of the game. They had a few opportunities, the Kiwis, after that. Yeah, I think I was explaining to Paul before we went live that there was that moment where Chance broke, and then the Kiwis had the Kangaroos on the ropes, and then Jerome Hughes kicked early with no need to. As I said to Paul, it felt like he was a Warriors player at that time and not a Melbourne Storm. I don't think he would ever do that for the Storm. You would never see him lose his composure in that moment. They've just panicked. They had 3 or 4 tackles in the bag on the line. They could have forced it. They got the forward pack that can just break through anybody. A bit calmer head. It just looked like they panicked in that situation, and that's the thing. I thought it was Australia's worst game of the World Cup. I didn't think they played well at all, but they have that grit, as you said. They're always in the fight, so you give them the slight chance, they're going to take it, and that's what we saw. And before the game started, I was real nervous. I thought the Kiwis had what it took to beat them, but it was also the feeling of the Kiwis could win, they might lose close, or they could get 40 put on them. I just really didn't know what Kiwis outfit we were going to get. So disappointing to see them go out, but to lose by 2 against a team like that in a game that very biased, should be of the final. The way it was set up kind of threw it in the boot. But yeah, well done, Australia. I'm a bit like you. I don't think the better team won on the day, but I think overall, if you go from round one to that game, Australia has been the best team in the competition. So they rightly deserve to make the final. And yeah, congrats. I'm just not supporting you in the final.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I thought we were. You're right. I think over the course of the whole tournament, Aussie's probably been the best team. We looked like we sort of stumbled and limped our way to the semi, and then put up our best showing in the semi. I think if it just wasn't for a period there in the second half where our error rate seemed to creep up and we let Australia get the ascendancy back. Other than that, I thought, probably we were the better team, but not to be. That's not how World Cups work in the knockout stages. So, congrats, Australia. On Sunday, the game that's set Samoans all over the world into a frenzy. They did it. They redeemed themselves from week one where they conceded 60 points. They managed to win in Golden Point here 27-26. Stephen Crichton, the hero, kicking the field goal in Golden Point extra time. And he had a fantastic game with a couple of tries. And also, I think Luai was fantastic with a few try assists, his footwork. He's just looked damaging for the whole game. And I think that's his third player of the match award in 5 games. So he's really stepped up and led Samoa to the final. So I think it's fantastic. What do you make of it, Brad?
Yeah, I had a little bit of hope. I think we even talked about last week, hope that they could get redemption and get the win here. But I honestly didn't see it happening. I thought England had been too strong. But yeah, Samoa, they really they got the redemption that they wanted. Were fantastic. They were combative. They just made a lot of good choices with ball in hand as well. And they've got that experience they got those experienced players when it comes to, setting up for field goals and whatnot. We've seen it so much during the season with the NRL, with the Panthers. So you kind of knew when they got into that situation that Crichton was going to do something like that, as he's done before. And real disappointing for England. I think they were just behind Australia in terms of the best team in the comp going through the World Cup. And unfortunately, I don't want to take it away from Samoa and say that maybe England went in too confident after what they already did to them in the first game of the World Cup, but it could have been a bit of that. But Samoa, before the World Cup started, I'd been waxing lyrical about how great the Samoan team looked and how dangerous they could be, and really jumped off the wagon after that first game. But they've shown since then that they do have that quality. So it shouldn't really be a surprise that they won, considering before it started, I predicted they would win that pool. But yeah, just fantastic. Horrible for England to not be in the final at home, but great for Samoa becoming the first tier 2 nation to make a final. And it's going to be very interesting in New Zealand and in Auckland, where I am. I know there were talks that they were looking at doing like a live viewing for the game, like in one of the parks in Otara, for all the fans to come down and watch. And I'll probably stay in the comfort of my home and watch it myself. But if you're in the area and want to go and enjoy that atmosphere, I'd say go do that. But hopefully it's going to make a cracking final. But yeah, unfortunately for England, just not enough in that last game. But yeah, well done, Samoa.
Surely you go along to Otara to watch it, Brad.
No, it's just down the road, but I'm good. I'll stay at home.
Fair enough. I'm trading my black jersey for a blue one this weekend.
I knew you would. As we all will. We'll all support the little brother Samoa instead of the cousins across the ditch.
Absolutely. So that was all the games that we're going to be reviewing.
Yep. Any questions, Paul?
Yep, we had one from Millie. Do you think that Samoa can beat Australia? What did Samoa do right in their match against England to get the result? You just reviewed the game, so I guess you've talked about what they did right. But do you think Samoa can beat Australia? Is going to be her big question.
You go, Richie. You're the Samoan.
I think they can, but I think what it will take is Samoa's best game and Australia to not quite be at their best. I feel like if both teams turn up at their absolute peak, Aussie just has that big game temperament, and players like Cleary and Munster have been there and won NRL grand finals. But what I'm going to be hoping for on the weekend is Samoa absolutely firing on all cylinders and bringing all that passion for Samoa, and hopefully it's enough to get them over the line.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. If they play similar to what the Kiwis did, use that forward pack, use guys like Crichton and Jerome, Suwali out the back, they have a best chance. The only issue I have is Australia generally don't have two poor games in a row, and they were very poor against the Kiwis, so I expect to see them get a lot better in this final, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll be the first one celebrating along with Richard if Samoa can do it, because I think it'd be great not only for them but for international footy.
Cool. And Simon, just checking. He says he's just checking. Is France Tier 2 nation? They made a final years ago. I guess they are.
Yeah, they made the finals in 1954 and 1968. I don't know if I don't even know if we had tiers back then. And that was back when Great Britain would play as a combined.
Yep.
So yeah, I suppose first tier Samoa, first tier 2 nation in the modern era.
So there we go. That's everything from the live chat. We've been covering stuff obviously as we've gone through it.
Okay, cool. I'll go with my one first because your one kind of flows into my question, Richie.
Sure.
So my question to you was, after their defeat in the semi-finals, how would you rate the Kiwis World Cup campaign?
All right, so I'll put it like this. So, like I was saying a little bit earlier, I don't think we ever really left second or third gear during the pool stages. We did what we needed to do. Same again in the quarter final. We did what we needed to do and nothing more. That I mean, we all saw Fiji nearly got the money there. So then we went to the semi-final and probably put up our best effort at the tournament, but it wasn't quite enough. So if I were to put it on an out of 10 scale, I think 10 would be winning the World Cup. We made it to the semi, didn't get the job done. So given what we saw from the pool stages, where it was a little bit clunky, I'd probably downgrade us to let's say 6.5. 7. No, let's say 7, because we nearly won the semi.
Yeah, 7 is probably around what I'm thinking. They were clunky all the way through. Did save their best game to last. Losing to Australia with the team they have in the semi-final isn't anything to completely throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's not like Simon said, it's not like 2017. When
definite improvement.
I just think my expectations were for them to be better throughout the tournament. But then if they dominated in those pool matches and then still lost this result to Australia by a close margin, it would still be the same. So it's a 7 out of 10. I think they had the ability to go all the way. They just a few tweaks here and there, I think, would have done the trick. But it's a learning experience for the next one, which kind of flows into what you're going to say.
Oh, is he going to say, do you keep the same coaching team, or is that the question? If not, I'll throw that question first.
It's
We'll ask my question. Yeah.
It kind of flows into that.
So my question to you, Brad, was post World Cup, would you make any changes to the Kiwi setup moving forward to next year and beyond, whether it be players, the coaching team, or strategy wise?
Players, I think Jesse Bromwich has played his last. But he definitely isn't going to be for the next World Cup. But you also said next year. So I think from now, I personally wouldn't have picked him in this World Cup, but he was the captain. So that's always a damned if you do, damned if you won't situation. In terms of the coach, if Madge wants to stay, I would keep him. I feel like there was a few times when you could say the coaching and selections weren't what I would have done, but I don't think you can blame the coaching for them losing to Australia. I think a few individuals made some poor individual decisions that ultimately cost them the game there. You can't put it on the coach. You look at the Brandon Smith situation, Jerome kicking early, those things. That isn't Maguire. So if Maguire, like Simon said, if he wants to stay on, he should. I can't think of another coach. It'd be great to have a New Zealander coaching them, but I can't think of a New Zealand coach that I would put in there because, Kearney had his time. David Kidwell almost destroyed the Kiwis. I can't think of any others on the top of my head that I would put in there. So, yeah, if he wants to stay there. In terms of strategy, I think they had the right strategy involved. Like Maguire wanted to use that forward pack to do the damage up the middle. And when they actually stuck to that game plan, that's when they looked dangerous. You saw against Australia in parts. They were rolling up the middle, and Australia was starting to get frustrated. And they couldn't combat it. When you've got one of the best packs in the world, you've got to use it. And I'm biased. I love packs in all shapes and sizes, but that is the key. They've got a lot of those big forwards are young still, so they'll be there for the next World Cup. So keep using them, keep developing them, and yeah, it'll be good. Mikey said Ackland. I don't think Ackland's going to want to coach at that level. And yes, so obviously Kenny was the best coach we had. We won a World Cup with him. Was he the coach or was he the assistant? And it was Wayne Bennett. Conspiracy hat on.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I thought he did very well. I just don't see him going back to do it. Going back to coaching internationals. If he wanted to and the Kiwis agreed, I wouldn't say no. But yeah, I don't think Madge did anything wrong to sack him. He's got a little bit more time on his hands, not being a full-time head coach in the NRL anymore as well. But yeah, I'd just be the players. I'd want to see a few more. Wayne Bennett was a technical advisor. We'll put that in quotation, Simon. I'm still very skeptical.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of young players there, and hopefully they can keep getting these young players to not defect to Australia so they can play Origin and keep those young players coming through, because I think that's going to be the key, keeping those young players coming in. We don't have the luxury that the smaller nations do where they can let their players play Origin. That's not on the cards for us, even though, as we mentioned in the news, Fittler is all keen for that to happen. That it's never going to happen. They're not going to let a Kiwi player play Origin, even though it's happened in the past with Tony Carroll and Brad Thorne and the like. But keep the big forwards rolling up the middle. Let Jerome Hughes and Dylan Brown actually develop into quite a nice house pairing, and I think the Kiwis are set up for the future.
Yeah, I think the nucleus of what we want is there. That spine is very good, obviously. The bulk of that forward pack I really like, but like you, I think maybe Jesse Bromwich's time is coming to an end.
Yeah, no disrespect to him. I don't want to
none
make it sound like I'm disrespectful.
None at all. He's been there and done it all, but I just think time waits for no man. It catches up with you eventually, and I think it's starting to with him. Even we've seen it at NRL level as well.
That's why he's gone to the retirement Dolphins.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly. I'd like to see us. We looked during that tournament like we were chopping and changing our centre. I think Hiku was a constant, but I'd like to see us see what we can do there instead of using stopgaps. Like again, Chance, for me, he's more of a fullback. I mean, I'm no international NRL coach, obviously, but that's where I like him. I'd like to see us give somebody like Matthew Tomoko a go and give him a good go. I think he's a real good, strong prospect. But yeah, other than that, I don't think I'd move Madge on unless we had there's no real need to. Just keep developing, maybe find a good, consistent goal kicker, and then we'll go out and beat Australia.
Yeah, and there was kind of a two-pronged question from Simon and from Paul. So Simon said that's why we need Kiwi origin as soon as possible, and then Paul asked how would we do Kiwi origin, North Island versus South Island or Auckland versus rest of New Zealand? I would love Kiwi origin. It's never going to happen though, because Kiwi origin would be more enjoyable to watch than state of origin, and the NRL cannot have that. The NRL would not allow that at all. The state of origins, they're the crown jewel. So if you have games, we saw it when the internationals that they'd played in that origin weekend were more enjoyable than origin. They immediately cancelled the fact that you could have internationals that same time. So, but I think either way, North Island versus South Island or Auckland versus the rest of New Zealand, either way would work. Auckland's such a big area for rugby league that they could do a team just that. And yeah, I'd be happy either way. What about you though, Richie? You're now outside of the Auckland region. So would you be happy having Wellingtonians playing for the rest of Auckland or rest of New Zealand instead?
I mean, yeah, it's fine. The way league is, it makes sense. Auckland's naturally been the sort of heartland of league in NZ for a long time, but I think if you were to combine the rest of NZ, they'd put up a pretty strong showing as well. I think it's sort of different to maybe Union. You'd be able to do a North Island versus South Island, but I'd be happy as long as there's more Wellingtonians than Cantabrians.
Yeah, and like Simon said, you could do Kiwi origin on a Tuesday and the Australian origin could be a Wednesday. You could do that, or you could even do a double header where it's the New Zealand game is like the warm-up game. Ideally, that would be perfect for the model for New Zealand because that's a more suitable time on a Wednesday night if they started that game. And then you got into that later game for Australia, so you're already kind of into it. But I personally just don't see it happening as much as I wish it would.
Yeah.
And so that was it. So we may as well preview the finals, Richie. If Paul wants to bring up our pretty picture again. Here we go. Nice picture. That's why I don't have internet. I used all my internet making that. So here we got first game is Saturday, the wheelchair, France versus England. Poor Australia almost had a chance to have their team in all three games, but didn't happen. But I think France has been the best team in the wheelchair. They've been putting triple digits up almost on a weekly basis. So I feel like they should have the edge here, but England's been no slouch either. So it's going to be really interesting. I will endeavour to do my best to watch all of it if I can. It's really early in the morning, but I'll survive. Next up, though, what's your takes on the wheelchair game?
Yeah, that time's going to be challenging. I'll have to maybe watch it at a later time. But, yeah, I think you're right. I would lean towards France, given what we've seen from them in the tournament.
Yep. And then next up, the first game on Sunday morning is the women's final with Australia versus New Zealand. As we talked about, they've already played each other not even a week ago with a 2-point loss for the New Zealanders. But I'm a bit like the Australia Kiwis game last week. It's could be a tight tussle or it could be a huge blowout by Australia. I'm really hoping that's not the case, and I think New Zealand would have learnt a lot from that loss. So it could be a repeat of the Samoa-England where they lost in the round robin, but they beat them in the one that counts. So that's what I got my fingers crossed for. Richie, what about you?
Yeah, well, last week in the semis, I went and tipped Australia, and Australia ended up winning. So I'm going to try and reverse psychology them this time, and I'm going to say New Zealand will come out on top.
Nice. And then the last game, Australia versus Samoa. We've talked about it quite a bit already in the questions, but my head says Australia and my heart says Samoa. And I think it's just a better story of Samoa when you got like their first attempt at a final and they win. Chanel Harris-Tavita's potential last ever game of rugby league go out as a winner in the final. And I also saw a stat that I don't want to see happen, and that's I think they said Junior Bolo could become the first player to lose an Origin decider, a grand final, and a World Cup final in the same year. Which I really don't want to see that happen to him. So, yeah, I really hope Samoa give it all they've got, and if they don't win, make it a contest. The last thing we want to see is a blowout in the final.
Yeah, my head says here, but my heart and every other piece of me for that is firmly saying Samoa.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously next week that will be the only games we get to talk about. So your homework, Richie, is to make sure you watch all 3 games,
Easy.
before next Wednesday. But before we go, I know Paul loves it when we advertise other podcasts and the like. But tomorrow night we are joining Ruin Hammer to discuss the Warriors 2023 draw at 10 p.m. New Zealand time. So if you're interested to watch that, go watch it on their YouTube channel or their Facebook page. Should be a good chat. And yeah, sorry, Paul. As you've seen by the internet connections tonight, which I apologize for, I need to pay the bills, so I got to go everywhere that they ask me. But anything else you wanna add, Richie, before we go?
No, I'm good, mate. Thanks for the chat. Thanks everybody for contributing, and Paul as well. Thank you.
Yes. So apologies again for my poor internet connection. I will go grab my flatmates by the ears and tell them to stop streaming whatever they're streaming. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in tonight and joining us on the Standoff with Brad and Richie. For your weekly update on rugby league, tune into our show next week at 8 p.m. here on Facebook or at your convenience on iHeartRadio. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. Cheers for helping us in the background, Paul, and cheers for joining me, Richie, and good